so this is going to be objective 29. We are going to write equations in standard form, and we are going to find X and Y-intercepts. What's a Y-intercept? Yeah, it's our B. Yeah, it's where it crosses the y-axis, where the line crosses through the y-axis. Today, we're going to find x-intercepts as well. Where would x-intercepts be? Where it crosses the x-axis. Okay, any questions about that? And that's what's good about standard form, is it helps you understand, like, certain forms. Like, what's good about slope-intercept form? It's really easy to find what? The slope and the y-intercept. That's what's good about that form. What's good about standard form is it's really easy to find your x and your y-intercepts. Okay, so let's talk about what it is. First of all, this is the form, standard form. ax plus by equals c. Okay, now a, b, and c will be numbers. A, b, and c will be numbers. So if we put numbers in for ax plus by equals c, give me an example of what the equation might look like. If a was a number, pick a number. 2x plus 3y equals 7. That is in standard form. And we've seen equations like this, have we not? How many saw equations like this today on their test or their quiz? Yeah, what did we do with it? We moved it and put it into slope-intercept form. Okay, now I will tell you the A, the B, and the C, those numbers we've already talked about. What do 2, 3, and 7 mean? They mean nothing. They are not your x-intercept. They are not your y-intercept. They are not your slope. They don't mean a thing. But from this form, we can easily find our x and y-intercepts. Okay, so and I'll show you how to do that in just a minute. What if you don't like today's lesson? What's the different way? Do it the way you've been doing it. Rearrange it into mx plus b. How many feel really comfortable with rearranging this into mx plus b and graphing it that way? And I will tell you that's the most popular way, and that's why I stressed it for like several days in a row, and that's why I did not move on, because that is the way pretty much most students like to graph in mx plus b form. And they also like to graph in mx plus b form because it goes in your calculator. Can we get this equation in our calculator as is right now? No. So I will tell you, if all else fails, you can just revert back to what we did yesterday and get everything that you need, okay? But it doesn't hurt you to understand other ways to do the same thing, okay? Like if I'm playing basketball, how many ways do I need to know to get the ball in the hoop? I mean, if I want to be the best basketball player, what do I need to know? Yeah, I need to know everything, and I need to know every different way to do it, and I need to know, you know, all the tricks and the trades of this. So I'm showing you another way to do it, another trick and another trade, just to make you that much better at slope and x and y intercepts and graphing and this and that. But again, if all else fails, you can stick to the first way, okay? So there are two no-nos that have to occur when this happens, okay? Y'all know what I mean by no-no? No, can't do it, okay? First of all, a cannot be negative. Well, that's not a big deal. The number in front of the x, and we call this the leading coefficient because he's the one in the very, very front. We want, so if he were a negative, tell me quickly, how would I fix that if he were a negative? Change all the signs. Switch it, switch it, switch it. Does that make sense? Would it be okay if the B and the C were negative? Those are fine, just your A can't be negative. So A needs to be positive, okay? The second thing is that there's no fractions. Well, that's not a big deal to us because we know how to get rid of fractions. How do we get rid of fractions? Multiply by a common denominator, and that's all we're going to do. Okay, so some of this is going to sound very, very familiar. Okay, so let's start with example 1. And I'm going to rewrite these so that they're just a little bit better. I did this PowerPoint a long time ago before we were able to insert fractions, so I had to write it a different way. Okay, but it's good for us to see that 3\4, because you know why? Yeah, how many entered that in on their quiz today with the backslash? And so I did that on purpose so that we could practice entering in fractions the correct way. Okay, all right, so I want to rearrange it. What form is it in right now, by the way? It's in mx plus b form. I want to take it from this form. I want to go to standard form. I want to go to ax plus by equals c. Okay, so we're going to play our minute to win it game again. Okay, is our x term in the very, very front? No. So we need to pick him up and we need to move him and put him over here. So negative 3/4 x plus y is equal to 2. Okay, so level 1 complete. Is the y next? So we're good there. Is our number at the very, very end? So we've pretty much got him the way we want him, except for our no-nos. A can't be negative. Is my A negative? So let's fix him first. Okay, so you could times by -1 to everything, or the shortcut would be, if we want to change the sign here, we could make this a positive, you could make this a negative, and you could make this a negative. Any questions about that? Switch the sign, switch the sign, switch the sign. Okay. How do I get rid of my fractions? So we're going to multiply everything by 4. So what would I get? 3x minus equals -8. Now it is in standard form. Question for Candy. What's the slope? Very good, Emily. 3/4. I'm glad you didn't even have to fiddle with it at all. Where's the slope at? He's at the beginning in mx plus b form. I want to remind you that the 3 and the -4 and the -8, they don't mean a thing. Okay? If I want to know the slope, it's got to go back to what we did the day before yesterday and the day before that. It's got to go back to mx plus b form. Okay? Don't let me forget to give you that candy. Yes? Because it is good for something. Okay? And what's good about it is that it's good to be able to, my question is, what if you are given a graph and you want the equation? And so you put it in an mx plus b form. What if all your answers are in standard form? What are you going to have to be able to do you're going to have to be able to work it that way. Remember, if you want to be the best, you need to go, forward, backward. So you will see equations in this form quite a bit. And it's possible that some of your answers may be in this form. So if you get the answer in mx plus b form and you're like, oh no, that's not down here. What do I do? What do I do? You need to be able to recognize and say, oh, that's just standard form. Let's just switch it back around. Does that make sense? So that's why you want to be able to do this. And the second thing is, it is good for something. I will show you it is really easy to find X-intercepts and Y-intercepts in standard form. Okay? So take a look at example 2. Is the A X in the very, very front? Piece by piece? No. So we are going to pick it up and we're going to move it. And this will become 2/5 x plus y equals 1. How many no-nos do I have going on this time? Only one. So will you always have to get rid of your no-nos? No. Sometimes you won't even have any. Okay, but sometimes you might have both of them. Sometimes you might only have one. So what do I need to do to fix this guy? Times everything by 5. And so that will make 2x plus 5y equals 5. So there it is in ax plus by equals c form. Okay, any questions on being able to go back to this form? What could you have done in the very, very first one? Instead of, like, we changed all the signs and then we times by 4. If you wanted to, you could take care of both of those at the same time. You could just times by -4. And I want you to understand that. But I wouldn't always recommend that because doing too many things at once can cause careless errors. All right, so see what you can do with these two right here. What do we get for our final answer for example 3? I want to share? Autumn, what'd you get? 2x minus 3y equals -18. Anybody agree? Got several takers. Anybody have something different? You have a plus 3y instead of a minus 3y? Okay, so let's take a look at it. So, when he moves over, now place him in front, he becomes a negative 2/3 x plus y equals 6. Okay, so how many no-nos do I have going on? 2. You want me to get rid of one at a time or both at the same time? One at a time, okay? Does it matter which one you get rid of first? No. So I'm just going to go ahead and switch the sign, and switch my sign. And then I'm going to times everything by 3. So that's going to make 2x minus 3y equals -18, which I think is what you gave me. Are you okay with that? Okay. All right. How about the next one? Somebody different. What do you get, Kev? 5x minus y equals 4. How many agree? Good. So when the 5x comes across, he becomes -5x plus y equals -4. And then here, all I need to do is switch my sign, switch my sign, switch my sign. It is like change, change, change. It is totally. Okay? And technically what you're doing is you're timesing everything by -1. But the easy way is we like change, change, change. Throw your hands in the air. Wave them like you just don't care. All right, here we go. Let's do a little bit of graphing. So I promised you, Susan asked earlier, she said, if the 8, the 4, and the 8 don't mean a thing, why in the world would I do it in the first place? And I agree. You probably are going to want to stick to mx plus b form. That's what most people are comfortable with. But I will tell you, if those that want to be the best graphers in the whole world, it's good to understand this. So first of all, I promised you that it was really easy in this form to find your x and y-intercepts. The first one's going to take me a minute to explain, but after you get going with it, you're going to see how easy it makes it. Okay? Like I can look at you right now, and I can tell you the x-intercept is 1 and the y-intercept is 2. Because, watch this, if I am on the x-axis, do you know what my y-coordinate would be? How many up or down would I be? 0, right? If I'm here, this is 1, 0. If I'm here, this is 2, 0. If I'm here, this is 3, 0. The y-coordinate, when I'm on this line, is 0. So if I want to find my x-intercepts, I can plug in 0 for the y, and I can solve for the x. And that will give me my x-intercept. So what happens? What is 4 times 0? 0. Whoops, that would be a plus. Excuse me. And 8x plus 0 would be 8x. So really, what happened to all this right here? Poof! It just goes away. Okay? And all you're left with is 8x equals 8. And so if I divide by 8 on both sides, what would x be? 1. And that point is, I got 1 for x when I plugged in what for y? And if I plotted that point, it's going to be right here on the x-axis. Does that make sense? And then if I wanted to find my y-intercepts, if I am on the y-axis, guess what? Do you know my x-coordinate? It's going to be 0. Do you realize that? If you are on the x-axis, this point is 0, 1. This is 0, 2. This is 0, 3. This is 0, 4. Your x-coordinate, anywhere on the y-axis, the x-coordinate is 0. So if I were to plug in 0 here, I could solve for y. That just makes 0. What is 0 plus 4y? So again, let me show you, because I'm not going to do this on every single one. I need you to understand what happened to all that when you plug in 0. Poof! It just goes away. Okay? And you divide by 4, and so y is equal to 2. So what point is that? What was the x? X was 0, and the y came out to be 2. So if I plotted that point, and so you now have 2 points, and so you now can draw your line. What else can you find? You could find your slope. Does that make sense? You could find all kinds of things. How many kind of like that? You just plug in 0, you find your x-intercept, you find your y-intercept, you connect the 2 points, bam, there's your line. And so, did I sell it good? It's a good way to do. A lot of people forget about this way though, because they stick to mx plus b so much, and we hear that so much. So my question is how many are like, it was okay, but I'll just stick to mx plus b? So would it be the same thing? Check this out. I'm going to do it really quickly. If I rearranged this, 4y equals negative 8x plus 8. And if I divide by 4 here, here, and here, y would equal negative 2x plus 2. Where's my starting point? At 2. What's my slope? Down 2 over 1. Down 2 over 1. And so guess what? It is the same line. When you shoot a jump shot, Martin, how many points do you get? 2. When you shoot a layup, how many points do you get? The same result, 2 different ways to do it. Of course, we have to make things difficult and go 3-pointer, but do you understand what I'm saying though? Like it doesn't, I'm teaching you yet another way to do the exact same thing. So which way do you do it on the test? Whichever way you want. Okay? All right. I'm actually going to skip this one if that's okay. Let's look at this and we'll make this 6. Okay? All right. So I'm going to sell it even better this time. In standard form, what's good about standard form? It's really easy to find your x and y-intercepts. And how do we do that? By plugging in zeros. What do you mean by plugging in zeros? Plug in 0 for one and solve for the other, and then reverse it. Plug in 0 for the other, solve for the remaining variable, y-intercept. So here we go. If I plug in 0 for x, what happens to this? Poof! What are you left with? 3y equals 12. So we divide by 3, so what's y? 4. So what's the point there? What did I plug in for x? 0, 4. So let's plot that point. 0 up 4. If y is 4, okay, the y-intercept is 4. Okay, now let's reverse it. Let's plug in 0 for the y. If I plug in 0 here, what happens to all this? I'm waiting for somebody to do it with me. Poof! Thank you. What are you left with? 2x equals 12. So if I divide by 2, what's x? 6. So what's my point? X is 6. What was the y again? 0. So if x is 6, that's your x-intercept. Oops. And so I'm going to go to the right 6. And so now you have your line. What else could you tell me from that line? You could get your slope. You could, I mean, there's all kinds of things you can do from that line. So you try this one on your own. I'll give a piece of candy to the first person that can quickly tell me, like I can just look at it. Can anybody tell me what the X-intercept is and what the Y-intercept is just by looking at it? Josh, what is it? Awesome. And the Y is? -5. Awesome. Very good. All right. Oh, yeah. So try this one on your own. So again, you know what's good about this form? It's really easy to find X and Y intercepts. So if I plug in 0 for X, what am I left with? And so what would Y equal? And if Y equals -5, if that is your Y-intercept, where would you go? Up, down, right, or left? You would go down 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay? And then if I plug in 0 for here, that goes, what does it go? Proof. And what are you left with? 5x equals -10, so what would x equal? And if x is -2 and that's your x-intercept, where would we go for that? Up, down, right, or left? Left 2, because it's -2. And so there is your graph for it. If I didn't like this way, if you don't like this way, what can you do? What will I allow you to do on your homework? You can rearrange it and you can go y equals mx plus b and you can go up and over, okay, with your slope. Homework. It won't take you long. All right, I believe this is your last one. Actually, there's 2 more. Graph this, and I'm not telling you which way to graph it. So which means you can do what? Anything you want. If this were me, what would I do? If this were me, what form is it in? So you know what? If this were me, guess what I would do? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then I would go down 6, right 1. Down 6, right 1. And there's your line. That's what I would do. If you did it the other way, that'd be fine. 6x plus y equals 8. This one's pretty simple. If I plug in 0 here and all that goes away, what are you left with? Well, there's your y-intercept right there. Up 8. There's no solving to it. Does that make sense? The x is a little different. If I plug a 0 in here, I'm left with 6x equals 8. If I divide by 6, what does that mean x is? What's 4/3? Does that mean up 4 and over 3? That means 1.3 repeating. Where is 1.3 repeating on the x-axis? Slightly past 1. So would it still be the same line? Does that make sense? If it's a little fraction, you just plot it. It's still like an x, but you plot it in between 1 and 2. Closer to 1, closer to 2. So you can do fractions. How many did it the first way? How many did it the second way? And that's fine. Either way. Okay. All right. Last one. What form is this in? It's not in a form. So which one do you go to? Whichever one you want. You have to be able to make a decision. Okay? My basketball players, when you're on the court, who tells you what shot to make? I mean, when you're in the moment, you don't have time to stop and say, Coach, which way do I do it? Right? I mean, you just have to use your best judgment and make a decision, okay, of which way to go with it. It doesn't tell you whether to go to the right or whether to go to the left. You have to make a decision, right? So make your decision. You can go either way you want to. All right, so I've done two different ways here. The first way I did standard form. So I got x minus 5y equals 5. So when you plug a 0 in here, x is 5. So you go right 5. When you take negative 5y equals 5, then that means y is equal to negative 1 when you solve it. So you go down 1 and you plot your line. The second way I did it, I moved the 5 over here, I moved the x over there, and then I divided by negative 5, so you ended up with positive 1/5 x minus 1. So you go down 1. From here, you're going to rise up 1 and over 5, or down 1 and left 5. It's still the same line. Okay?